put my cowboy hat, because I had like 3 cowboy hats, right, or hats, and it was podium or in the, and then when I pulled it out, it was dark, and I realized, I put it on like, that doesn't feel right. As soon as I go, I don't recognize it. Sure, the fair board did, they were there too, like, you know, from a racing family, who were your cowboy hat back there?
We're almost there. It's 10:50 or 9:57. I can take roll, but we actually let me get this stuff for you.
Yeah, pretty soon, all this electric stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So change for you guys.
Maybe a few, yeah, we've got some great candidates, so maybe
Yeah.
we've got a couple of people stepping off.
I think
we've
I'm
got
gonna have
some
Michelle.
really good candidates.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That will make.
Exactly, yes.
so, yeah, I think the whole, the two of the ones who are stepping off have been really opposed to that like big move, but I think the ones who are coming on are very on board now, so.
Bad timing. Good morning, Mr. Hall.
How's it going?
I'm
Public really.
Bad.
Public has been so happy about it, so.
See, that was some work. We worked pretty hard on that one. The courthouse, yes. I was all happy on my.
Yeah.
I came
I think the
together.
vast majority are very happy about it, and excited to move in.
Yeah.
What county?
There's the county seat or the house across the river. Yeah, we made some collaboration.
Heard something different? Don't do that, Prosper.
We're in without a city hall for.
Oh,
So, and there's space in there, so,
that's nice.
so we're finally.
It'd be nice for us too, because, you know, I mean, there's not any, we don't have hardly any staff in the courthouse, and
Yeah,
so having somebody down on the first floor taking that up will be good, we'll fill it back up again.
and the community really wants to see that building used, so it just was a good fit.
Yeah, on any like commercial building or home, if you ever seen a lot of them vacant, it's almost as it's like
Which
it's home, it just, everybody's more.
Yes, yeah, and it affects everything around it, you know, it's just that sense of pride for the community.
Oh, 100%. I see you guys got it, it's the label as far as we're gonna put the police department, we're gonna put on that lot.
Yeah.
Air, we're hopeful they'll, I try to make it as regional as possible on the site. Maybe it says it on pretty fast, so I know where that was, but I looks like I guys live in that one lot, maybe additionally they were on, as well.
Yes,
Yeah, they're looking for you guys.
and we're looking forward to having some drawings and just kind of being able to conceptualize what that would look like.
Right there.
I will be happy to, because they're subsidizing.
All right, I show that it's 10 o'clock, so I'd like to call this meeting of the Ben Franklin Council of Governments of July 18th to order. And we'll start with the meeting statement.
Okay, sorry, hang on 1 second here, we're having some technical difficulties. I'm gonna start recording, we had a slide issue. I'm gonna present this, and then I gotta switch this, and then I gotta delete that, and then I gotta.
Just glad we got away with it.
I can do this quickly, okay. Okay, thank you, now we're ready, Skip, and we're recording. We're doing the community statement, so. This one is to like.
Before we begin, translation services are available free of charge upon request. Antes de que comencemos, servicios de traducción de forma gratuita son disponibles bajo petición. Ben Franklin Council of Governments was established by a voluntary association of local units of government in 1966 with the vision of providing a forum for improved communication, multi-jurisdictional decision-making, regional planning, and the capacity to serve as lead agency in providing multi-jurisdictional programs. Services provided to the member jurisdictions are outlined by interlocal agreement and can evolve with the needs of the region. PFCOG currently fulfills the following designations on behalf of the Benton Franklin region: Planning Commission, Conference of Governments, Regional Transportation Planning Organization, Metropolitan Planning Organization, Transportation Management Area, and Economic Development District. The FCOG Board of Directors simultaneously serves as the governing body for the Benton Franklin Council of Governments, Benton Franklin Metropolitan Planning Organization Transport Policy Board, Benton Franklin Walla Walla Regional Transportation Planning Organization, Benton Franklin Economic Development District. Share this information at the beginning of each board meeting to provide context to the information shared and the actions taken during the meeting.
So that's our convening.
Before we begin, translation services are available free of charge.
Okay, so I'd like to ask Michelle, could you do roll call, please?
I can. Ben Franklin Transit. Benton County.
Present.
Benton City.
Present.
Connell. City of Kennewick.
President Gretel Crawford.
City of Pasco. City of Prosser.
Maricela Sanchez.
City of Richland.
Joanna Jones here.
City of West Richland.
Red Brick here.
Franklin County.
We did here.
Port of Benton.
Roy Keck.
Port of Kennewick.
Bobby.
Port of Pasco.
David Gordon.
And WashDOT South Central.
Brian White here.
Hey, you have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Our next item of business, introduction of guests. Do we have any guests online?
I'll just say, I'm Kate Tollefson. I'm with WashDOT's Tribal Regional Integrated Planning Team. Thanks.
Welcome, Kate. Is there anybody else? All right, we'll move on then to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Even though it's green. Let's see, our next agenda item is approval of the agenda. We need to add or subtract anything from the agenda. If not, can we have a motion to approve, please?
This is Fred Brick. I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. The agenda is approved. Our next item is public comment. It's an opportunity for anyone from the public to comment on anything on the agenda or anything you'd like to make us aware of. We just ask that you state your name, state your residence for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to make a public comment? All right, seeing that, we'll move on then to presentations. And I'd like to welcome Matt Rasmussen from Benton County.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the things that we're doing there. So, we were asked to just do a brief presentation on some of the transportation and economic development projects that the county is working on. So, without further ado, I'll start out with our transportation projects. So, a lot of the roads we'll probably talk about today are probably not familiar to everybody. We do a lot of our work out in the rural area. So, one of our bigger projects that we're hoping to go to construction with this year is our Hanks Road Phase 1 reconstruction. Hanks Road actually is up in the northern, very north part of Prosser. Has a lot of agriculture, so it's lined on both sides. We got one. Yeah. So it's an agricultural route. There's a lot of orchards up there and things, and it has a lot of vertical alignment issues. And so we're trying to go through it over the next couple of years, rebuild that whole road, fix those issues. So we hope that one's actually through state of Washington funding through the County Road Administration Board. So it's not, it doesn't particularly involve the COG, but it does go through our our transportation planning process, so people do see here about that. Another one out in the Prosser area is our district line bridge. That one happens to be the last timber bridge that we have in Benton County that we're gonna be replacing here in the next couple of years. So starting design on that particular bridge, and so that will get rid of all timber structures that we have, which is a good thing for us. So County Well Road, which more people may be familiar with, is up on the Horse Heaven Hills. County Well serves as a kind of alternate route to people coming down off of Highway 221. Sellers Road is usually the primary, but during the winter, that road does get closed from time to time, so County Well is a badly needed secondary route. It doesn't meet our all-weather road standards, and it's narrow, so we're going through it over the next probably 6 to 7 years. We'll be rebuilding that entire 10-mile section of road. So we have actually all 3 phases are in some various phase of funding and construction, so you'll see all 3 of those appear here. And then one most people should be familiar with is Badger Road, which is the end of Clearwater, just past the roundabout. We've been working with the DOT it's been a couple of years now. There's been some delays, but due to development, there was some rechannelization needs out there to improve traffic flow through the interchanges. And we have a right turn off of Badger that's problematic. There's a school there, and we get a lot of traffic, and it backs up over some railroad tracks. So through rechannelizing this and putting a dedicated right turn drop-off lane, we're hoping to relieve some congestion and improve safety in that entire area. So then we have a couple of more road projects. So Dade Road is probably one that no one's ever heard of, but it serves a major onion processing plant for Biden Foods up on the Horse Heaven Hills. So it's been a gravel road for a very, very long time. They've been expanding their operation, and so we partnered with them to improve that to a paved road section. We actually just completed that work about 3 weeks ago. So the road is done. They're very happy. We're happy because we won't have to grade it 10 times a year anymore. So, but that's a good thing for us. There's another phase of County Well Road. You can see there, which is we're partially secured funding. We're doing the design of that particular project all in one shot, and then we'll build it in 3 phases as we can secure the funding for that. Another one projects that we've been working on a lot lately is we get a lot of funding for safety improvements. So those come through the state through their highway safety improvement program. And so we do a lot of intersection, new signs, rumble strips, advanced warning signs. We've done guardrail, delineators. We got a lot of run off the road accidents in the county because of the high speeds. Surprisingly, most of the run off the road accidents are on perfectly straight segments of roads. And don't ask me why that is, but that's what we see. So we've got a lot of those kind of upgrades going on. We have 3 projects right now in that safety improvement realm that are going and designed in various stages of construction. And I believe the last slide here, we have a path that runs from the city of Prosser to the city of Grandview. It's a bicycle and pedestrian pathway, runs kind of along the interstate. It was constructed maybe 20 years ago. And so it hasn't had a major rehabilitation since that time. And there's a lot of cracking and issues. We've gone in over the last few years and done some grading to improve the aesthetics and make it a little more comfortable so you don't have big slopes and weeds and things right up against the path. And so now it's time to go in and rehab the pavement and get that back to something that people actually enjoy riding on. It actually sees there's a pretty big bike race, the Sage Rat run race that goes down that path. And so it gets quite a bit of use. I'm surprised how much use that pathway gets. So we'll be, that one actually we have to obligate construction funding for this year. So I would expect that we'll see that probably happen in the early spring of next year, the actual repaving. So, and then another project that's kind of in the, a little bit in the economic development range is the Adair Road. That's a proposed new road, and that's out there on the Southbridge area on the south side of the interstate. The city of Kennewick recently annexed some property on the south side of the interstate, and they're trying to get some industrial development to occur out there. We want to support that. We feel that that's a good location for it. So the county is right now negotiating with the property owner to obtain the right of way to build a new roadway that will connect the existing Christensen Road, which is a crossing over on the interstate there. It will connect that down to Locust Grove Road, or other people may be familiar with that as State Route 397 on the other side of the highway. And that'll give us secondary in and out for major truck traffic and everything as we try to develop that into the industrial space. So that's so right now we don't have funding for construction, but we do have funding for right of way. So we're working on securing the right of way from the property owner there, and then we'll be looking to find some money to actually build a road. So, then we have a couple of, you can see the last phase of County Well, and then some intersection improvement projects. Everybody's familiar with Badger South and all that area that's been developing so quickly. Some of that traffic does end up on our county roads, and so we're going through and just improving intersections to reduce congestion and improve traffic safety. So Riata and Bermuda is one of our primaries. We're seeing a lot of new traffic now that Richland has connected Queensgate all the way over. We're seeing a lot of traffic. People haven't realized that that's a quicker route for them to get to that Queensgate shopping area. And when the new Costco opens, we expect that to get worse. So we're trying to be proactive and make some improvements in that area before it gets too bad. So here's the last few, just a couple of more newer projects that we're kind of working on. Really all of these are in the planning stage. Coffin Road, you may be familiar with that. It's several miles south of the city of Kennewick. That's a major, it used to be Easter Day Farms. At the end of that, now it's a different owner. But we also have a lot of major agriculture and wineries out off of the end of Finley Road. And in order for people to get out of there, they have to drive all the way up to the Finley area and then circle back down and around to get back to the interstate. So we want to work with them to push a new road all the way out across Grand Canyon Road and out to Finley Road and provide a significantly reduced truck route for them so that we can get them out of that area a lot faster. 27th Avenue is one of the more urban roads that the county has, still under our jurisdiction. Probably 20 years ago, we went in and put sidewalks on one side of the street, but not on the other. So we're going to be looking to secure some TIB funding to come in and finish the sidewalks on the north side of the street and make that a lot more friendly for pedestrians in that area. Dallas Road, probably everybody's familiar with that. That's the busiest road in Benton County. So we have by far the most traffic there of any of the roads we have. We went in probably 5 years ago and put some shoulders on it, because prior to that it had maybe 6 inches of paved shoulder. We had a lot of bikes and pedestrians on it. So we added 5-foot shoulders there, but we're recognizing with some development that's coming, we're seeing Lewis and Clark Ranch in the city of West Richland, and that Badger South area continues to grow. Dallas Road is going to need some additional improvements and widening. So we're starting some planning work on that project to get that going. And it also happens to tie into the city of Richland's improvements that they've been making on the south end, which is in their jurisdiction. And then last but not least is we're looking at a pathway extension along the levee there, starting at the Cable Bridge, where the current Sacagawea pathway ends on the Kennewick side of the river, and extending that down to Two Rivers Park in Finley. So it's kind of an informal pathway now. There's a gravel road on the top of the levee that people do walk and ride bikes on. And so we've been in talks with the state. They have some funding through the Climate Commitment Act, and we've talked with the Army Corps of Engineers, and so we have an interest in funding some pedestrian and pathway projects from the state, and the Corps is supportive of turning that into a paved walking and bike path. So pretty cool. Yeah, that'll be a really cool project, because it'll extend that down. The goal of the state's funding is to connect recreational areas with bike and pedestrian transportation modes. So we said, hey, this is a really good fit for that. It's a Two Rivers Park is very heavily used in the summertime. People will ride and bike down to that area. So we are in the design phase of that one, working with JV engineers on that. So very interesting project. I hope that we can get that done here in the next 2 or 3 years. That is all for transportation projects that I have. I'll pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions about those or
Any questions of Matt? Great presentation, Matt.
Well, I don't want
Still there. Yeah, he's still there.
So that should be fair. More?
Economic.
Yeah, go back to Dallas Road for just a minute.
Sure.
Our driveway's off Dallas Road. Can I get a stoplight in there?
It will only be red though.
You know, right, you want to drive right now. One thing that Matt did see though, I think a lot of you said a few times, is we're being proactive on yeah, so we're really looking at the vision and the future itself. So as much as we can be proactive, I know that all our local people are doing a very good job and stuff, trying to make that safer and have better quality of life as well on some of those projects. So
It's trying to get ahead of things.
Joanna has her hand raised up.
Sure.
Joanna?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm actually very impressed by the amount of work and funding the Benton County is actually putting into our roads. And I wasn't even aware. I was aware about the one right before Badger Mountain, of Clearwater exit, but you guys are very impressive of what you're doing around the county. And I would love for you to come to the city of Richland City Council and, give us an update, because you're doing a lot of good stuff around our city as well. And I would love to have the city council actually hear from you directly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. So I'll reach out to your city manager and see when we can get on the schedule.
We're not done with the presentation.
Yeah, so that has more.
So I was also asked to talk about some of the economic development type projects that we're doing. The county doesn't do a ton of economic development. The ports and the cities have a lot more ability to do that, but we do have a pretty cool project that we're pretty proud of and something that we're going to be working on. I think it's a good regional benefit.
Oh, yes, sir.
There we go. So we started a couple of years ago some improvements to our fairgrounds, and we had identified I came into the role I'm in now. I've been in the county for 11 years. When I came into the role I had now, I really was looking at the fairgrounds and saying, we have a very underutilized resource out there. The county had not invested a lot of money into that. So working with the commissioners then and continuing with Commissioner Alvarez and our team, we said, hey, let's do a master planning effort out there and see what kind of things we could do to the fairgrounds property to improve it for a year-round facility. Because traditionally it had been used for the fair, which we don't want to impact the fair. The fair is a great thing. But the community wants to see more events. They want to see things to do all year round. And we think we have a resource that can help with that. So we hired a consultant and we did a master plan. We have 170 acres of property out there. We probably only use about a third of it right now. So there's a huge older gravel pit and a lot of area around that is completely untouched. And so that was one of the things we looked at to say, what kind of things could we put on that property to bring more events in? So we completed a master plan, and I believe it's available on our website if people want to see it, or we can certainly share the entire master plan document. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here today because that would take forever. But it gave us a good guide on the types of things that we could do to make improvements to that property to attract more events. And also the biggest thing we wanted to do is we wanted to be fiscally sustainable. We didn't want a consultant to come in and have us build $200 million worth of infrastructure that we can't take care of. So that's something part of that. So we want to make sure that it's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. I think most people out there are pretty used to it being a fairgrounds, but if we increase the activity out there, there may be some neighborhood impacts. We're working through the ingress and egress, a lot of conversations with the city of Kennewick, because our only entrance is onto 10th Avenue. The DOT is going to be involved because that entrance goes onto Chemical Drive, which is a state highway system. So we're going to have some conversations with them as we start rolling out some of the improvements that we're looking at. Our plan right now with the funding that we currently have is over the next probably 7 years, we'll invest about $20 million into projects out there, which is way more than the county has invested in the last 70 years. So there's a couple of current projects that we have going on, and we'll talk about those a little bit, but what highlights is we're going to do some maintenance to the buildings. We went in probably about 6 years ago on the main buildings and redid the insides, but we didn't do anything to the exterior. So I think we're going to step back and focus on getting some of the exteriors of the buildings cleaned up, make them match the insides. Right now, if you go to the grounds, you'll see they have a painted plywood exterior, which doesn't look great, but when you walk in, they're beautiful, nice wood and black ceilings and polished floors. And so we want the outside to match the inside so that we can, people will really come there. And so, sorry, I went one slide too far. I thought there was there. We also are looking at some parking lot improvements. As we went through our master planning study, one of the biggest complaints we saw was that the parking was terrible. So people would come for a dinner or something. We host a lot of quinceañeras, a lot of company Christmas dinners and things in the facilities. Well, we don't have a paved parking lot. And so you get a lady who's dressed up to go to dinner in high heel shoes in the wintertime, and it's not a pleasant experience walking across a muddy gravel lot. So one of the first projects we decided to do was add 350 paved parking stalls right up near the buildings. And so that way people can enjoy those events and make that a lot more suitable for, you know, we're not going to park everybody for the fair or anything there, but it makes it suitable for most of the events that we're doing. And so that actually got paved about a week and a half ago. So we are on track to finish that project here. I think it's supposed to be done in the middle of next week, and we'll be turning that over to the Fair Association as they gear up for the fair. So we're done with that project. And another one we're looking at, and I have some slides on, is we call it an arena expansion, but it's a little more than that. It's a complete rebuild of the current Sundowns Arena. So I got some slides coming up that we can talk a little bit more about that. Additional things we're looking at, we talked about taking some of that ground that we have in the back that's unused and seeing if we want to find a partner to do some sports fields. The Chamber of Commerce, Visit Tri-Cities, did a study several years ago that identified a tremendous need for sports fields of all types. And so, you know, our location maybe isn't as ideal as some, because we don't have direct highway access and there's not a lot of hotels nearby, but we do have a lot of flat usable ground. So we may explore that a little further to see if having some sports fields out there makes sense.
And potentially multi-sport.
Yeah, we're talking
pretty in demand right now.
Yeah, talking about the multi-sport, you know, the soccer, lacrosse, the big square fields versus like baseball stadium. So that seemed to be one of the biggest demands from the Visit Tri-Cities study. So, and then the other one we're going to start looking at, and we'll start out with probably a more in-depth master planning type study, is we have part of that property is an old gravel pit. So it's sunk down in the ground about 40 feet. And one of the things that has been talked about there, and I think it's a really cool potential, is to turn that into an amphitheater. You know, something similar to the Red Rock Amphitheater that's down in Bend. And so somewhere in the 10 to 12,000 seating capacity range, so that we can start hosting and bringing some concerts. We're in a unique area where we have a lot of major acts that pass through this area. I mean, where you're from Boise to Spokane or Seattle, but we don't have a venue to attract them to stop here. And so our fairgrounds manager's been talking to some promoters who do that. And if we could put an amphitheater there, he feels like that we could capture some of those and have a pretty good season of concerts during the summer. So, we haven't gotten too far on that, other than it is a very conceptual idea of the master plan. And so we're going to hire a consultant to come in and really dig into that and give us a full feasibility study. So a little bit more. This is a picture of, this was taken earlier this week of the parking lot.
There's a video.
Oh, is there a video?
Yeah.
So yeah, you see there used to be a very small paved section for ADA parking right up in the front, and now that has all been redone and repaved. We added some landscaping islands, improved the entry to the fairgrounds, and then added those extra 350 parking stalls there. Probably one of the next things we're going to do is take a look at regrading and redoing the rest of the gravel lot. People, if you're familiar with it, it's sandy and it's got big rocks in it, and so we need to smooth that out, improve the lighting, and do some more work out there. We don't want to pave the rest of it because we don't want to deal with capturing all that storm water and everything there, and we don't use it but for really large events, but we do want it to be a much nicer. So this was kind of our phase one of the parking, is let's get some good paved parking. Phase two will be redo the gravel and regrade that and make that a lot nicer. And so it improves accessibility. We added new lighting, so now it's not lit, you know, like a rural parking lot. It's lit like a real modern parking lot. And we actually added some stadium lighting along the perimeter that shines out into the gravel area that lights that up too. So now we have modern LED lighting. One of the things we were running into with the lighting out there is that nobody manufactures the bulbs for them anymore. So as they would burn out, we either had nothing or we were stealing them from another light somewhere where we thought we didn't need it. So that's now been resolved, so we should see some safety improvements and things like that. So we spent about $3 million redoing that parking lot. It's a done deal, so. Then the next one is, what we're talking about is phase 2 is the McDaniel Arena and redoing that project. And so this is a little video of what the existing conditions look like. I think most people are probably familiar. The Sundowns has been there for probably 70 years or close to it. Hasn't had a lot of major work done in that time. The Fair Association has done some work on what we all call over the chutes, which is what you see in the background there. That's more of they have platforms, they do kind of box style seating there. We're not gonna touch any of that. We're focusing on the bleacher seating side of it. And so what our plan there is we're gonna double the seating capacity. So it's about 3,000 people right now. The plan is to get that very close to 6,000 people. We'll replace the restrooms that are there that were old, add a new modern concession area, enhance some of the safety elements, increase accessibility. We're gonna add pads for food trucks so that we can have some local vendors come and do food trucks when we do events there. And it's really, you can see here what the existing condition is on the left, and on the right side is what the replacement will look like. It will be a little bit taller, it will be much more shaped like a kind of a wraparound of the stadium. We're gonna add some sun walls up on the top to provide shade in the afternoons and evenings. And like I said, everything, the restrooms and concession areas will be placed underneath the new bleachers. We'll improve the ADA access. We'll have connected ramps to the over the chutes area so that people can get back and forth across there in central concourse through the middle of it. But that's kind of an overview, so you can see on the bottom left is where the new seating is, and then the over the chutes part that remains, and we're not going to change is on the upper right there. So we actually are going to start construction on that the day after fair ends this year. They will be, our contractor will be out there starting demolition. The bleachers have already been ordered because we have about a 9-month window to get that project done before we have to turn the property back over to the Fair Association for next year.
So Matt, what you're basically saying, I just want to make sure everybody understands, our goal is to have that completely done by the beginning of the fair of next year.
Yeah, we have a July 2026 completion target. The contractor has both positive incentives for getting that done and liquidated damages if they don't finish. So
You gonna do anything to the roofing or bucking at all?
that's all part of the over the chutes part, so we're not touching that right now.
Okay.
I know the Fair Association does a pretty good job of, they've just replaced some of the gates and did a few things to it. So that might become a project down next phase, but we wanted to focus on replacing the seating and everything there, and getting that done. So, and we do work with them pretty regularly on making improvements out there, so.
And also, Matt, I want to make sure everybody understands that too. There was a lot of thought process, even with the design of the bleachers and different times of the day, so that there could be active shade or all those kind of things too. So all those things were considered.
Yeah, so this is one of the pictures, and forgive me, I forget what time of day, but we actually had the consultant model for every time of day during certain parts of the year to make a decision on, what makes sense. And so you can see in this picture, you can see kind of right above the blue, there's a shade wall that's going to go up. And so from what we can see is, this would probably be about, one of the worst case scenarios for lack of shade. So a good portion of it is shaded all the time. And that was a really big consideration for us to make sure that we have a good portion of that seating in the shade, because we all know it gets hot in that time. So,
Hey, Matt, quick question.
yep.
So you have more, how much more seating is this going to provide then?
About 3,000 more seats.
Okay. And then, so what about some of the open areas and I can't remember what the bar down there is called. Are there accommodations for replacing?
Yeah, we're gonna have new concession areas in there so that they can have food or drinks or all of that can be served from those concession areas.
Okay. So no lower areas kind of open anymore. Everything will be bleachers on those levels and then food and accommodations they'll just take up into the stands with them.
Yeah,
Do you think that this is going to increase the amount of activities that go in there? I'm just wondering because it's a lot of seats and I know I'm at the rodeo a lot, so a lot of times the bleachers are not always full, so I'm just wondering, or just providing opportunity for future. Or are you going to be bringing in more events and more things throughout the year as well?
so the goal is to be able to bring in a lot more events throughout the year. So one thing we've heard from promoters of some of the events we've been talking to is they really need to see tickets in the 5,000 to 6,000 range before it's
Okay.
profitable for them. So that's why we targeted that number. So yeah, we're gonna definitely try to bring in small concerts, more motocross events, different things like that throughout the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I was wondering how the county is working with Benton Franklin Transit to help bring people to the events when there are large events that
So we're,
thousands of people.
we're actually working with them right now on a redesign, so that on the west, we call it the West Gate, which is off of Fairview Avenue. That's where the transit comes when the fair is. We're redesigning that to improve that so it can be used for all events and have a transit, I wouldn't call it a station, but a designated area for buses to pull in right there, be off the road and drop people off on that side. So, and we are talking with them, because parking is gonna be one of the things that, when we get some of these really, really large events, parking is gonna be a challenge, even with the huge amount of gravel we have. So we are talking to transit about, can we find other alternatives that have designated routes from the parking area to the center?
Any other questions?
Just one last comment. You know, I'm so passionate about this project, you know, and the fair and how we're running the fair and all the other different type of programs that we're looking at putting out there, different promoters and stuff like that. And I think this is a Benton County taxpayer funded facility, that takes Benton County taxpayer dollars to run a facility 365 days a year, because it takes maintenance crew. It's super expensive to maintain that much property over a year's period of time. And so I want this to be a project that we have not only the fair there, but we can have good quality events and better quality like this here, 365. And so I think all the different things we're looking at, whether it's sport fields, because there's still a demand for that, it's just growing, to all the different types of programs that I know Tom's talking about, programs, I think this will be a good project in the future. So we're really trying to bring this into the future and being proactive on this. So I'm kind of excited about this project. I think there was a lot of hard work on it. You do it right, people will come. I've got built dreams.
Well, you put it in good hands with Matt, that's
Yeah. I guess one thing I didn't mention is the way we're paying for all of this is the county receive, we partner with the cities and the ports on the .09 funds. So the county's portion of the .09 funds that we have are being dedicated to this project. Along with the, we get a small percentage of the real estate excise tax that is specifically for capital improvements. So that has been dedicated to our fairgrounds for a long time. So that is another piece that's being used to pay for this. So we're not bonding or borrowing money for any of this. It's all cash we have on hand. So
That's awesome. That's good planning.
Good financial common sense.
Yeah, that's good.
anything else?
Any other questions from anybody?
Appreciate the opportunity to share.
No, Matt, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
You mind if I stay for the next?
You're down further on for entertainment. No, great, Matt, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on then to, five facts, and I think that's with Michelle, I believe.
That's me. Okay, well, as part of our commitment to continue to educate the board on all things the COG, today's 5 facts is about understanding our revenue reality and just where our funds come from and what we can and can't do with them. If you've looked at today's agenda, most of our action items relate to money, so we figured this was a good way to ease into that. So next slide. So of course, fact number 1, most of our funds come with fine print. Every dollar is not equally flexible, and because our funding comes from multiple sources, they each have their own rules. But in the big scheme of things, we have, of course, federal and state program funds, which is the lion's share of the money that comes into the COG. Those, of course, have the most strings. They're restricted uses, very program specific, and usually tied to deliverables of a particular program or funding agency. We have a couple of special funds. Those would be semi-restricted. They've got some strings attached. They are mostly restricted by purpose in a more broad sense rather than being very regimented. The Public Works Economic Development Act fund, we're going to talk about that a lot today. For those of you that might recall, that was our defederalized revolving loan fund. So what that meant was it's no longer accountable to the federal government. Their restrictions have been released. However, because of the original source of the funds, we are still required by purpose to use them for what would be considered a Public Works Economic Development Act of 1965 eligible purpose. So there is some restriction there, but a lot of flexibility about what meets that intent. And then, of course, our local funds, those are member dues, our reserve fund, interest earned on that loan fund, and those have the least amount of strings. They are flexible, but limited amount and availability. So all of those factor into how we make funding decisions. Next slide. So fact number 2, the difference between direct and operational funds, well, a tale of two buckets. Basically, grant money or federal money, state money, that pays for doing the work, but it doesn't necessarily pay to keep the lights on. So direct costs, program and funding specific, like your jurisdictions, you'd consider our direct program funds more like a designated gift than a general fund. They are dictated by the program or the grant award. In our case, it is mostly staff salaries. There are a couple of our programs that do pay for program-specific expenses. But for the most part, it's underwriting the staff salaries that are working directly on those programs. Direct costs, those funds cannot pay for general operations directly. However, we do recoup indirect cost recovery. The challenge with indirect cost recovery is that, of course, it doesn't cover 100% of the costs. It's just an offset. It's annually adjusted. It's highly variable. And it's not additional money. So when our indirect cost rate increases or decreases, that also changes the amount of money available for that direct program. So if we have $100,000 for, let's say, our economic development program, and our indirect recovery rate goes up, then the amount of money in that pot available to actually fund the program goes down. So it's always still just $100,000. Then we have, of course, our operational cost, which is, for us, anything that's not paid for by a direct program. Facilities, technology, legal, accounting, administrative, fringe and benefits on staff time, those all come out of our operational indirect costs. Next slide. So we really have 3 funding types: restricted, semi-restricted, unrestricted. Our restricted funding sources, of course, are our federal highways and federal transit program dollars, WashDOT dollars for transportation, our economic development dollars that fund our economic development district activities, the Brownfields grant. We have previously received broadband planning grant funds, and then our CARES revolving loan fund. So of our revolving loan activities that we're in the process of closing out, CARES is the only one that still has a restricted federal obligation to it. Special funds, that's that semi-restricted, which again, that's the Public Works Economic Development Act fund, or PWEDA. And then our original regional revolving loan fund. So those are dollars that were previously lent out in revolving loans. They no longer have any federal restrictions to them, like the CARES revolving loan fund, but it is still right now set up in a fund for revolving loan. And then go ahead, Lacey. And then local funds, unrestricted. Again, those are our member dues, indirect cost, and reserve fund or interest. Okay, next up. So of course, strategic choices matter. We stretch every dollar. We strategically use local funds and indirect funds to support our operations and enable our programs and cover what grants can't. The flip side of that is that we prioritize whenever possible for expenses that can be covered by a direct program or to limit those operational costs as much as we can. We focus on being right-sized for our work, so we try to be lean and responsive and conscious of what those trade-offs are between what we can and can't get done. And of course, we recognize that also our operational capacity today shapes what we can do with programs in the future. So we're always looking at that staffing rate of, we don't want to be overstaffed and not have people be busy or carry a large burden for staff, but we also want to make sure we have enough unobligated staff time that we can take on new opportunities when they present themselves. So it's a delicate balance. And then number 5 is, of course, funding and stewardship equals mission success. So as the staff, we manage the strings, so you don't have to be tangled up by any surprises in the future. So from a staff standpoint, what that means, of course, is that we're providing regular board education about programs and funds and restrictions. We make recommendations based on the needs of the mission, our opportunities, those funding restrictions, and then request the board's authorization if we would like to use semi-restricted funds like PWEDA, which of course we'll talk about in some items later today. And then from the board standpoint, our expectation for you all is just to ensure that you understand what's happening with funding types and restrictions, and that the organization has adequate operational funding through our local funds to make sure we can do the work that we're obligated to do. So that is my 5 facts update for you all.
Thank you, Michelle. Does anybody have any questions on the 5 facts? Just a comment. I've been involved with the COG since 2009, and I have through a lot of executive directors, a lot of different staff and stuff. And this is absolutely by far and away the best organizational composer, I guess, of the COG that I've seen in those 16 years. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you to the staff for making it that. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda then. These are items considered of routine nature, taken by one vote of the board. Any item can be removed, placed further on down the agenda, or tabled for another meeting. Do we need to remove any item? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
This is Fred Brink. I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Fred. Is there a second?
Second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to action items. The first one is member dues formula. And Michelle, are you taking the lead on these?
I am.
All right,
Okay.
you're up.
So member dues formula, you have information in your packet, and I'll show the formula on the next slide. But as a background, we've talked about this before, that each of our jurisdictions pays a percentage of our local funds, and that was set at some point in the future using what we've heard related to population and or other factors to set those percentages. But we didn't have anything that documented why each jurisdiction paid the percent that they paid, or any means to adjust that if that were necessary. So what we have presented is a formula that comes as close to what our jurisdictions pay today in a way that we can justify why that is, and it can be adjusted in the future if necessary. So it's transparent. The one thing I want to be really clear about is that this is not a new dues strategy, and it does not generate any additional income. All this is doing is just giving us a documented formula so that everybody understands why different members are paying what they're paying.
Oh,
here it is.
I did.
So when you look at the formula that we put together, if we work from the left to the right, first we have our members are broken down into 5 categories. They're the same categories that we represent on our executive committee, which is our urban large cities, small cities, counties, Ben Franklin Transit, and the ports. So for the urban large cities, that's of course Kennewick, Richland, West Richland, and Pasco. And if you go over to the green column, the green column is what our members pay today and their percentage. So we use 2025's dues number so that we could what paid this year versus if we had applied this formula, what that would be. So the first thing you see is under budget target, that $282,000. That was the total pot that was covered by our members in dues for 2025. So that was the matching funds required for our federal programs. So when you look at the OFM population numbers, those were 2025's new numbers, and the percent of the population total for the 2 county areas, you see that the large cities make up 79% of the population. Of course, because we have Ben Franklin Transit and our ports that have overlapping population, we don't make the large cities pay 79% of the pot. It's actually 55% of the pot. And honestly, we backed into that 55% by looking at what everybody else pays. So that's why it's 55. So what we did is for each category, they have a percent of the pot, and then how that's divided amongst the members when it comes to the cities and the counties is by their percentage of that portion of the population. So you can see that city of Kennewick, out of 55% of the pot, city of Kennewick would pay 34.53% of that 55%, and that's based on how those population totals shake out amongst themselves. So you can see they're paying 34.53% amongst the cities, even though when you look at the percent of population total to the left, it says 27%. Well, that's 27% of the entire 2 county population versus they make up 34.53% of the city's population. So when you continue to the right, then using Kennewick as the example, their percent of the pot using this formula would be $53,553.70. Currently, they paid in 2025 $57,464. So they paid 20.38% of 100% of the pot. So when you look at the right, they would actually save $3,900. It's a 6.8% decrease for them in this formula. And you kind of see that running through with each of the members. Most of them see a little bit of a reduction. There are, I think, 3 or 4 who see an increase, and that's really attributed to their population increases in the region when you just look at how they compare to each other. So if we go down to small cities, you see that in the new formula, the small cities are at 4% of the total pot. If you look to just to the left there, percent of the total population, our small cities make up 5% of the total population. So that's an indicator to me that, okay, we're in the right neighborhood at 4%. When you go over to the difference areas, you can see that Benton City goes up by $70. The others go down just a touch. And again, that's how they relate to their percent of population within their own subcategory. Next up is the counties. In our formula, we have them at 15% of the pot. They make up 16% of the total population. Again, that tells us we're in the right neighborhood for looking at a fair percentage. Franklin County goes down a little. Benton County goes up just a touch. And again, that's related to their percent of population in relation to each other in that category. Ben Franklin Transit sees the largest increase. And if Tom were on the call today, he would tell you he understands that and is okay with it. Part of that is driven by the fact that as the MPO and our work with the FTA on behalf of Ben Franklin Transit, we do a lot of specific work for them. So they are a little bit higher in terms of how we broke down these categories for everybody. And the other thing is that Ben Franklin Transit is the only member we have that also shares that same shared population as the COG. So in their opinion, they're paying a little bit more, helps to balance out the fact that they're already serving you and you're already paying into their work at the same time. So they do increase a little bit, and that offsets some of how the categories got balanced out. And then last, the ports at 11%, which again is a little bit of a decrease for them over what they pay currently. But overall, that gets us to our same $282,000 for just comparative purposes, but does break down a formula that seems to me as fair and equitable and as close to what everybody currently pays as we could get in a way that seemed to make sense. No, that was a lot, so I'm open to any questions, but what we're looking for is just the board's authorization to adopt the formula if you feel like this makes sense. Fred, you have a question?
Not a question, but a comment. Michelle, I appreciate the action being considered here to memorialize the dues, considering that apparently had not been, or methodology had not been memorialized earlier, at least in research you could find. So I support this.
Thank you, Fred. Any other questions or comments? A lot of information. Michelle, thank you for putting that together. All
So
right, can we have?
Oh, there it is. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam?
Linda was clapping and.
Great. Anybody else have a question? All right then, can we have a motion, please? There's a motion in your packet on page 12. First up on the screen.
I'll get it, Skip, to keep things moving here. I move to adopt the BFCOG dues formula as presented in the member dues formula analysis for the Benton Franklin Council of Governments.
Thank you, Fred. Is there a second?
Since Fred made the motion, I have to go with it, so I'll second.
Great, thank you, Michael. All right, it's been moved and seconded to move to adopt the BFCOG dues formulas presented. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion's approved. Thank you. All right, move on to the next action item is the compensation study, COLA. It's on page 16 of your packet. Michelle?
Okay, and Alexis and I are going to tag team on this this agenda item. Every 2 years, the COG completes a compensation study to make sure that we are staying in line with our local jurisdictions. And so Alexis is going to review the analysis that was done on the compensation study and what led to this recommendation that we're making for you today. So we'll come back to the motion and the budget impact after we hear from Alexis.
Alexis, you're up. Hey, Michelle. Good morning, Chair. My name is Alexis Fernandez. I'm the staff accountant for Franklin Council of Governments. Today I will be presenting on that compensation study. Some background, the compensation study is performed every 2 years. The last one was performed in 2022. This one took a little longer since we had staff turnover and staff training, so we're discussing it in 2025. This compensation study compares 16 local member jurisdiction and regional industry peer organizations. The BFCOG position salaries are compared to equivalent of job titles, job tasks, responsibilities, experience in education. The results from this study was that current BFCOG salary ranges lag the market by an average of 10%. Some positions are more between 6 and 20%. And then salaries as well, like that same. The last BFCOG COLA was given in January of 2022, so it has been a couple of years since the last cost of living adjustment was implemented. BFCOG used the average of the member jurisdictions, as you can see on the data on the right. So we did contact our local members to see what COLA they implemented for their area. The combined COLA average given by the members in 2024 and 2025 came about 6.7%. Implementing this at BFCOG of a 6.5% COLA adjustment, we're reducing average salary market lag to 4%, narrowing the gap and ensuring the compensation remains competitive.
Okay. Lacey, you can go on to the next slide if you'd like. Oh, sorry, go back to the first one. I forgot we were missing that last one. So as staff, once we conduct the compensation study and take a look, we really have two options available. We can propose adjusting our salary matrix just to keep up with the market. Or we also have the opportunity to ask the board to consider a cost of living adjustment. As Alexis mentioned, we don't issue COLAs if our member jurisdictions haven't issued COLAs, and we look at an average of the members, again, because the COG shouldn't be leading out in that, but we're always looking to make sure that we're comparable and fair with what's happening with our jurisdictions. Of course, normally you wouldn't ask to look at a COLA that covers 2 years, but of course, because we haven't instituted one, this is the cleanest way to affect an adjustment of our salary ranges that's also in line with actions that have already happened with our member jurisdictions in 2024 and 2025. So what we're proposing the board consider is adopting a 6.5% COLA. Again, that would be combined average of what has already been adjusted by our members for 2024 and 2025. The purpose of this would be to bring our salary ranges and compensation in line with the market. We're still actually a little bit below market. But also the budget impact of making this adjustment, there is no negative budget impact because we have opted not to refill the local government programs director role. Looking at 2025's approved budget for the year, even enacting this 6.5% COLA for the remainder of this year, we're still projected to be nearly $30,000 under budget even after this adjustment. And then as we look at the budget for 2026, we'll be able to adjust for that in our budget planning for next year. there any questions? Oh, the one other thing I wanted to point out that we didn't mention, when Alexis discussed how we compare salaries and positions, I always like to make sure that the board understands, like, for example, for the salary range that you use to set compensation for me as the executive director, when we compare, like, my role, for example, we're not comparing to city managers, county administrators. We're actually comparing to director level roles for our local governments, because of course the scope and size are not the same. And we're doing that with all of our roles. So number of requirements, education, years on the job, etc., are being compared equitably. And of course, you guys have all that background information in the staff report in your packet.
Michelle, thank you. Questions of Michelle?
I do have one, but thank you. So Michelle, I just had a quick question. I totally understand, it makes sense to me, but I know that going forward, I'm just looking, a couple of years in the future, by implementing that 6.5% COLA, you said it's no budget impact, and it says after the increase, the salary budget would still be nearly $30,000 in our budget. But moving forward, as we want to keep these things up to date, how much increase is that 6.5%? What's the total? Do you know what the total dollar amount that was to move that for the total amount of salaries?
Oh, that's, yeah.
Down the road. I'm looking at the dollars versus percentages down the road. It's going to have an impact when we want to do this again, how that affects maybe the budget as a total. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And while I'm pulling up that dollar amount for you for this year, Alexis, you might be able to look at that where you're into.
Yeah, we do have that. I'm just kind of curious.
That's a good question.
Because down the road, a couple of years ago, I requested to do a wage and compensation for the county that hadn't been done for 30 years. So we finally started catching up and did that. And so I'm going to control that because otherwise you'll be kind of, So I'm just curious to see how that's going to envision what's going to happen a couple of years from now.
Right. So to go back to the beginning of the presentation as well, we look at this comparison every 2 years. So the next time we would pull data and just check for comparison on our ranges would be in 2026. So that would be looking forward to 2027 and 2028. So we don't generally do this annually. It's every 2 years. And even then, we actually did that big adjustment in 2022. That was the first time we'd done a compensation study in quite some time. And so we had huge adjustments that we were trying to make up for a couple of years ago. So frankly, to be within 10% and understanding that some of what was driving the difference is the fact that our member jurisdictions had already made adjustments from the last time we had looked at salaries is what we're trying to keep in line with. Because the truth is, in order for us to be competitive and keep our staff, the most likely places we're going to lose them is because of compensation, and they're going to go to one of our local governments if they can, or the state. So that the only way we keep from being a revolving door is just making sure we stay in alignment as much as possible. And again, looking at the fact that the ranges are based on an average. Again,
I guess I look at it this way too. Also, the cost of recruitment and retention, that always goes into play too.
Yes, huge.
So looking at that, I guess Michelle, my only doing that look at the numbers. I'm cool with that. I trust your judgment. So you feel moving forward on the next biannual actually that we will be pretty good when it comes to the budget if you're projecting out. You feel comfortable with that?
Yes, I do. And again, partly that's because so many of our salaries are direct program driven costs. So, yeah, so most of that increase, we have budgetary ability to cover that within our programs.
Perfect. The HR management, my bachelor's in HR management, I have to ask. It's just skills.
Of course you do.
We're good. Thank you.
Yeah. And Fred, you had a question?
I do, Michelle. Thank you. You mentioned you're not going to fill the local government programs position this year, and it would save approximately $30,000. What are your intentions for next year with that position?
Perfect. So we're debating between a couple of options related to our program. So we have our grant navigator role, for example, and right now we're funding that as a pilot through our PUITA fund, and then at next year when that pilot is done, our option would be to go back to our local governments and say, hey, have you found enough value that we need to find a way to pay for this? We could underwrite some or all of that position under our economic development program that previously funded that local government role. Or we could also split some of those duties between a more of a planner style role that did some of our economic development work around the SEDS, and also works on the planning side with transportation, and do kind of a share between two programs. So we're being more direct about what's the actual direct workload that needs to be done. We just decided that didn't need to be a director level role. So we'll be shuffling that between existing roles and perhaps future planner expansion.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that detailed information. No other questions.
Anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please?
Move to approve implementation of a combined 6.5% COLA adjustment in alignment with the combined regional average for 2024 and 2025. COLA increases made by our member jurisdictions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
You got it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further board discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Rochelle, thank you for that one.
Oh,
right.
thank you all for that.
Move on to future 2075 budget.
Ooh, 2075 budget. I have to tell you guys, as a staff, we're getting really excited about the potential of this event and the things that we're working on. But we've gotten board general approval to move forward with this event, but we needed to get some detail before we could ask you to authorize a budget. So the budget authorization we're asking for is $30,000. And before everybody chokes, just a reminder that it's a full day event for up to 75 people. It's basically the equivalent of a 1.5 day conference, and includes a pre-dinner. So we'll have 60 to 75 participants. That'll be jurisdiction staff. We're talking about the manager, administrator, economic development director, public works director, deputy admin, and then at least one elected official from each of our member jurisdictions. If we have more, that's fantastic. Of course, I'm hoping that the elected officials that are on our board will be part of that group, but perhaps you would have some other elected officials that would join in. And then the COG members of the staff that will be supporting the event. This expenses include the venue, AV, catering, professional facilitation. We love the graphic recording that Port of Benton has done for some of their big events, and would like to include that in this event as well, especially since it will be a one-time event for us. We want it to be memorable and impactful. Print media, all the little promotionally things we need in order to affect the event. And again, our goal is that we do want it to be unique, memorable, high quality, and ultimately be a catalyst for just improving our overall regional collaboration. So the budget information I included in your packet, I'm estimating we're going to come in at about 25,000. But we're asking for an authorization of a not to exceed of 30, just in case there's something that we've missed, just so we don't have to come back and ask for approval again. So going back to what we mentioned before about, that's awesome, Michelle, but where's this money going to come from? We have our Public Works Economic Development Act fund currently unallocated. There is $739,000 in that fund. We have moved that fund into the local government investment pool. So it is now generating interest at about 4% right now. So we'll continue to earn money. That PWEDA fund is semi-restricted again, so we have to use it for an activity that is eligible under the Public Works Economic Development Act of 1965. This Future 2075 event is an eligible activity for two reasons. One, it directly drives our SED's strategic priority of efficient and effective collaboration for our local governments, and also the COG's mission of regional planning and economic development, which will be an important part of this collaboration. So I have zero concerns about this expense being eligible under PWEDA. So that's where I think those monies would come from to support this event.
What questions, Michelle? Nobody has any questions on $30,000? All right. With no questions, then can we have a motion?
You don't go back and do any attachments, right?
Stacy, will you pull up the first motion slide, please? Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I would move to authorize a not to exceed budget authorization of $30,000 from the Public Works Economic Development Act Fund for the execution of Future 2075 event planned for November 2025.
Thank you, Vicki. Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, Fred Brink, I'll second.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. More discussion? Anybody?
I have a question or discussion.
Go ahead, Gretel.
So, as you said, Skip, no commentary or discussion on this. We did have a meeting, previously with Michelle, and talked about some of these finances and expenses, and also BFCOG's role, the city's role, the county's role, planners, economic development, et cetera. And then I went back and I've also spoken, with some of my, with our city manager and department heads. And I do think that part of the financial benefit of this long term that I'm hoping that we're going to get with this Future 2075 is kind of like Michelle's done today with an overview of, what are the funds, how are they spent, what are they spent for, and just a very transparent overview of what BFCOG is doing, is going to be doing. But I think that there also seem to be some, in some of the other meetings I've had, kind of aha moments for some of our city staff. Aaron and Michelle and John Cowling, our public works director, met recently and talked about some things. And there are some programs that BFCOG does that I don't think that the cities and jurisdictions are potentially aware of, that are opportunities for them to not spend money within their jurisdictions. And I think that I'm hoping that this meeting is a little bit of accumulation of that too, so that there's a little bit more interaction between BFCOG and some of our city, county departments, just to make sure that we're not duplicating resources and that we're fully utilizing the resources that are being paid for within our community, even if it's at different locations. But I think we have a great sharing of resources throughout all of our entities, and I'm hopeful that that's what this will be able to come away with. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, great comment. That's exactly what we're hoping with this event. Any other comments or questions?
Do we have a date set for November this year?
Yes, it's November 7th, Friday, November 7th.
That's my birthday. Hey, that's a good day.
Oh, hey, okay. Yeah, Friday, November 7th. We've got save the date, ready to go out for the calendar so we can get that on everybody's calendar set. But we did work through each of the jurisdictions to set the date itself. So you should see those calendars invites coming out here in the next week or so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, so all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, our next agenda item then is strategic visioning consultants.
Okay, so this actually ties, I think, even more closely than the Future 2075 to Gretel's point about really getting to that strategic vision for the COG, helping us really understand what our members' expectations are, what their perceptions are, how our programs work together. We've been talking for a long time about wanting to do a strategic visioning with the board, with our members, for just the direction of the COG. And truthfully, even though this has been a desire for both the board and the staff, the first really 2.5 years had been just nothing but cleanup and getting our house in order. And then the second, because of the state of our kind of lean staff, there's only so many hours to try and get some of these things done. So actually, Skip had suggested that maybe we instead consider hiring a consulting firm to help us go through this process. A lot of your jurisdictions do that as well. To just in recognition of the fact that we don't have a lot of staff time to really do an effective job of the background work to do some strategic visioning. And B, we may get better information from all those that we need to gather, all the stakeholders, if that's being gathered by a third party rather than our own staff. You know, I feel like you guys would be honest with us if there's things you wanted to tell us, but you know, let's be honest. So what we're looking for, what I'm looking for, is direction from the board, if you are amenable to that idea, to go through the process to secure a consulting firm to help draft the plan, approach, and possible execution on the back end of the strategic planning process for the COG. I want to put on everybody's radar that 2026 is actually the COG's 60th anniversary. So that timing is good for doing that strategic visioning and kind of getting to that point in 26. We already mentioned the value that comes from hiring a firm versus just the staff trying to get to that point with our board. So next slide, Lacey. Background information. I did some background work and got some information that, depending on whether we just have somebody help with the stakeholder background information versus if we get to the point that we use a firm to do everything from soup to nuts to go clear through the strategic planning, facilitate that, reports on the end, the whole bit. The range that I was given was somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000. So again, to be kind of soft, $100,000 would be a not to exceed. I'm not asking you to approve a budget today, but I wanted you to understand what we were talking about if we were going to hire a firm. If we do an RFQ for qualifications instead of RFP with proposal, that would give us some flexibility to phase in. So if we wanted a consultant to do part of the work but not all of the work, we would have flexibility to do that. Again, a planning consultant is a justified PWEDA expense because the COG's mission is regional planning and economic development. Consultant-led strategic visioning and assessment is an allowable expense under their activities. So, and then just as a refresher, you just approved a not to exceed $30,000 for Future 2075. That leaves that PWEDA fund with still $700,000. It is still invested and earning some interest. And ultimately, this is just planting a seed for you all later. But when we fully close out the regional revolving loan fund, that fund right now has over $300,000 sitting in it. So my recommendation for the board when we're at that point is going to be that gets rolled over into the PWEDA because it's still the same kind of general intent for dollars and funds. So even though it feels like we're using a large chunk of that fund today, there's more money that's going to continue to go into that fund in the future. So I just wanted to be, really upfront. So I guess my question is, how do you guys feel about using a consultant? And if you support that idea and understand that obviously that's going to cost some money when we issue a contract, then I would just seek your authorization for me to start that process with an RFP or an RFQ to affirm and start planning.
So questions of Michelle on this agenda item from anybody? Or rather than, there's a proposed motion.
Gretel just.
Is Gretel?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't know. I know that this is done in government a lot, these strategic consultants and things. I always look at them and I think, wow, it's just a lot of money. I know it's helpful for organizations, especially large organizations. I guess a little bit of my concern is cost, and I know I'm very happy with the organization that Michelle has put together and the way that the staffing is all going and the direction it's heading. I am concerned about a budget cap of 100,000. If there's rough estimates are 50 to 80, I feel like that should be pulled back in. And I guess if you get quotes or bids that are, that we could review and then make a decision if it were something that was going to exceed. It's a lot of money. I know we've met recently and talked about the finances for VFCOG, and there's a lot of buckets and there's a lot of things coming up, but I feel like this on top of the Future 75 are similar things. And I'm uncomfortable with the $100,000 not to exceed budget cap. Like to maybe move forward with something, but discuss a different number, not to exceed or for conversation.
So Lacey, would you go back to the proposed motion slide? Okay, so at this point, the only thing we're asking for is the ability to put out the RFP and get that information. That'll tell us what those estimated costs will be. All I know is a very broad spectrum. So they could come in less, they could come in more. We are not obligated to give an award. So at that point, I'll be able to come back to the board and actually ask for a firm budget and the ability to issue a contract. So yes, Gretel, to your point, I just wanted to be really transparent about when I have the ability to get an estimate, it is really broad. So I'm not asking you to give me authorization to spend money today, just to start the process. And I wanted to do that with it just being clear about what the potential.
Okay, no, thank you. That clarifies things, and I appreciate it.
Just real quick also, Michelle, just kind of feeding on what you just said. On that, when you put that out there and you get estimated cost of what a consultant is going to charge, well, are you also going to provide what the scope of work they're willing to go ahead and do what they're looking at so we can see the whole picture?
Yeah, so part of what we'll provide them with a scope of work of what we're looking for, but part of what we're going to ask them for is to propose a plan and an approach, because there are many ways to get there, and that will, I'm sure, dictate the scope of the contracts. And that's where, when we get into the technicality, if we instead try to source through a request for qualifications, then we can get information and identify one or more consulting firms that we could work with. We could do a phased approach. So versus an RFP, you're putting out that specific scope of work to do this work, and you're comparing exact costs to exact costs. So one's more direct and definitive. The other gives us more flexibility to make those kinds of decisions that once we have data to look at, we may decide, oh yeah, we only want them to do the stakeholder querying portion. We don't want to pay for the full meal deal, and staff can take that data and we can do something from strategic visioning with just what they compiled.
I understand that. But
Yeah.
I understand that, but you're gonna be able to show that to us as well,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay, that's what-
absolutely. Yeah. You are not authorizing me to spend money. You're just authorizing me to go out to get proposals.
Any other questions or comments?
It's like Lynn's clapping.
Clap.
Oh, you're clapping?
Your
Okay.
proposed motion is to secure a consulting firm. I would like to have that changed to secure proposals for a consulting firm.
Okay.
So there's an amendment to the motion. Is there,
But if I,
while Lacey's doing that, there is an amendment to the motion. Is there any objection to accepting the amendment? By doing that, then the motion is amended.
but what was he said, what was?
Glenn, what did you say?
To secure proposals for a consulting firm.
Okay.
Pearl. Yep.
Also.
Go ahead, let him make the motion. Wing it.
Then would you like to make the motion as amended?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to change it to secure proposals for a consulting firm.
Would you like to make the full motion as amended?
As amended.
We're gonna get there, we are.
Hold on, he just rewrote it.
Question as we're
Go ahead.
navigating to that screen. If we do determine in the future that it's just too big of a lift to hire an external consulting company, would the backup plan be to undergo this process using staff to lead internally?
We could address that issue. Sure. So if I understand this correctly, the motion is to direct the executive director to craft an RFQ to secure proposals for a consulting firm to create a plan, approach, and possible execution of a strategic visioning process on behalf of the cause. Secure.
I put a proposal, but then we changed. Have to take the A out.
So any
Two secure proposals.
board discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. But I heard
Who
from
was the
everybody.
second, by the way? I don't think we had a second.
I'm sorry. Len made the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, Fred Brink again. I'll second the motion.
Oh, thank you, Fred. Okay, now, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, thank you for all that. That was a lot of action items. Michelle, thank you for the good work on all those.
Thank you. And we're just gonna zip through reports. We didn't have a bunch of written reports, and so we just got a couple of verbal things for you, and we'll zip right through.
Okay, so who's doing the tip obligation status?
I believe that's going to be Tanner.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's a little update. We are fast approaching the end of 2025 federal fiscal year. That is September 30th, and we still have a bit to meet our obligation authority target of 9.24 million. We currently have 2.11 million programmed in 2025. As of July 16th, the region is obligated 4 projects for a total of 4.7 million, and the remaining amount to meet our target for 2025 is 4.5 million.
Tanner, thank you. Any questions of Tanner?
Tanner,
All right.
since that is a pretty broad spectrum still, and we're coming up on September, is there any additional information you want to give the board on that?
Yeah, so we did miss our target last year. And if we don't make our target this year, we do potentially face sanctioning, which is a reduced amount of funds, potentially of reallocation funds. We are on pace to, during the TAC meeting in July, Public Works directors gave updates on the status of their projects and obligating. Everyone stated that they're on track to obligate. We did have a TIP amendment in June for the city of Pasco. They were awarded funds from the 2025 call for projects, but they are looking to obligate the PE phase early. So if they do so, there's no pressure on the city of Pasco, but it would be of great help if they did obligate. Right now, you can see we have 10.11 million programs, so we do need every project to obligate in 2025 to ensure that we do meet our target.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Tanner, thank you. General update on government program report.
So before we do that, I think Daisy has just a couple of quick things to tell you about transportation.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. My name is Daisy Funk. I'm a senior regional planner with the regional planning team, and I wanted to give you guys an update on some of the things that the regional planning team has been busy doing. We've been kicking off new plans and making progress in the plans that began earlier this year. So due to the early stages and just data collection periods of these plans, there's not significant updates. They're just some general updates on the activities. So first, Tanner is working on the TIP document development. So project review with WashDOT is underway, and jurisdiction resubmissions will happen that last week of July. And then public comment period for that document will be in mid-August. Next, Tanner and Alex are leading the regional freight plan, and they are transitioning from stakeholder engagement to document development at the end of July. Third, the pedestrian and trails plan is going great. Lizzie and I have been conducting stakeholder interviews for the pedestrian trails plan, and throughout the summer and early fall, we will be attending community events and just participating in the region to raise awareness for that plan. Next slide, please, Lacey. We have begun updates for 2 plans. So the long range transportation plan, the LRTP, also referred to in the past as the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP, and that is updated every 4 years. So we've just begun that process, and that'll be a big plan that we will be kind of taking on. It's really important for the region as a key regional planning document, and it'll align with federal and state guidance as well as our local jurisdictions' comprehensive plans and specifically their transportation elements. We are also updating the congestion management process, or the CMP, and that happens every 2 years. So that is just getting started, and stakeholder interviews will begin in August. And lastly, for some public engagement updates, Lizzie's been doing a great job supporting West Richland for their public engagement efforts on the groundbreaking ceremony towards the end of July. And she's just been doing a great job. So just want to say congrats to Lizzie on doing that. She's killing it. And if anyone needs help with their public engagement, she's your girl. So The regional planning team has been busy and doing a wonderful job. So I just want to say thank you to the team, and they're doing a great job while Aaron's away, taking care of his sweet daughter Greer. But that's all we have at the regional planning team.
Daisy, thank you. Michelle, is there anybody else that needs to report on that?
Nope, not on that one.
We'll move on then to local government program report. Kristen?
Okay, and I'm going to pretend to be Kristen, who is at the Oregon coast today. We're all going to feel really bad for her. Next slide. So Congressional Connections, we did host a special meeting between state representatives and the staff of our federal delegation. They were able to talk about a myriad of topics related to that nexus between state funding and federal funding and programs where the state may also want some support from our federal delegation. They got enough out of that conversation that they've requested another meeting in October. So we will assist in coordinating that as well. And then our regular Congressional Connections meeting, I believe, happens in September. Next slide. Funding opportunities and grant navigation. Kristen has sent out notices of funding opportunity related to the broadband grant, housing infrastructure program funding, and a demonstration program related to trauma-informed, victim-centered training for law enforcement on domestic violence. Next slide. And technical assistance. Kristen is currently working with Franklin County Public Works about a potential facility expansion to address departmental growth. Benton County Parks and Rec, looking at infrastructure projects both for the fairgrounds and the Two Rivers Park. Benton County Prosecutor's Office under their Victim Witness Investigator and Advocate program. And the Kennewick Police Department related to their BRAVE program. Coordinating with the school districts, City of Kennewick and Benton County. So it's been great to have people reach out and want Kristen's assistance and with research and support. So so far, we're waiting for that one successful grant application to come in, but there's been a lot of background work and frankly research to decide when it makes sense to look at funding and when it doesn't, which I think is equally important. Slide. Okay, and that's it for economic development. And then for me, for our COG side of the house, we're starting our 2024 audit. We just were assigned our auditor yesterday. So we'll start that process and it'll be done whether we like it or not by September 15th. So we can meet our federal single audit submission deadline. Our 2025 ICAP rate, the negotiation is finally done, and we're just waiting for our confirmation letter to come back from our cognizant agency on that. Compliance modules for our new website to do social media archiving and records requests are being set up and implemented. Lacey's been leading those efforts. Just as a reminder, the first year and implementation costs of that are being paid for by a grant from the State Archival Office. And then we have an officer from Richland Police Department that's going to meet with our staff on Monday, the 28th, just about building and general staff safety and how to deal with unexpected or unwanted visitors. Our office is a little off the beaten path with a giant sign on the outside that says government. And given just the general state of the world, want to make sure that we're prepared in the event that we do need to deal with it that maybe don't have business with the COG. Be doing that on the 28th. Our FY21 Brownfield grant, City of Kennewick is, we're wrapping up their downtown area-wide plan. We close out that grant by the end of September. And we also coordinated tours and a visit with the staff from the Center for Creative Land. I wrote reuse, it's recycling. Center for Creative Land Recycling. Thank you to both City of Richland and Benton County. If Matt's still in the room, we were able to meet with him and talk about our partnership with the county, as well as Mandy Wallner from City of Richland came in and met with us as well. They were really impressed with all the work we were able to do under our first grant, and we're excited to hear about what may happen under the new grant. New grant, the final work plan is being submitted, and then we just have to wait while the feds finish their award process. And then, of course, the Regional Future 2075, location and other logistics. Now that we have authorization to spend money, we'll get all those details wrapped up. And I have a meeting on Monday while I'm in Idaho Falls with Dr. Barber to work on some of the facilitation parts. So all things are progressing.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Any questions of Michelle? Is there any other new business that needs to come before this board at this meeting? Hearing none, rather than go around the room, I'll just ask if any directors have an update or anything they'd like to share with us about what's going on in their various jurisdictions or their organization. Anybody? Ben?
Yes, we received funding for a sidewalks from our high school to our grade school from WSDOT. Our new disc golf course is pretty incredible. We already have a website on it for people to make reservations to even play it. We're having parking issues. We're having people waiting to tee off on it. We had a national player play it and said it's one of the best disc golf courses in all the United States. So if you want to send somebody our way to play disc golf, please send them. We will be finishing up our pickleball court with 6 courts here, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and have a six pickleball courts going in our town.
That's awesome, Lynn. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We recently in the city of Prosser, we passed a density and infill ordinance. So there have been concerns about the long-term liabilities that were being incurred by sprawling at the edges of our urban growth boundaries. And so we are now turning to look at increasing density within the core of our town, focusing on walkability and using our streets and our utility systems more efficiently. And had good support from the council, only one dissenting vote, and are really excited about how this might support our downtown simply by having people living and walking within the city center rather than driving and living on the outskirts of town.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, hearing nothing, then our next meeting will be Friday, August 15th. It is 11:43 and this meeting's adjourned. You all have a great day. Matt, thank you very much. Over future, so we do. Oh.
Meetings are actually.
Right here.
Yeah.